Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tatam Jayat Udire
Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Bhagavat Uttama
Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtuki Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Jai Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone. Good to see you all. Let me sort out a few things here. Okay, so right. So today we will try and attempt to do the summaries of 3 chapters because it's an allegorical story. There are too many details are there. So I'm going to summarize in a short form to avoid confusion. I will start giving the summary from chapter 24 onwards. So we completed chapter 25 and we took a break last Thursday. So today, actually, we will try and do 26th, 27th, and 28th chapters of the 4th canto. I will try and summarize in the story form, and then ask devotees to read some sections of, these chapters where we can learn some lessons. Otherwise, too many details are there, which will cause a confusion. But however, if you want to read it elaborately, by all means, later on, you can go to these chapters and read the chapters, texts and purports as well. Okay, so 26, 27, 28, but I would like to briefly touch base what had happened in the 24th and 25th chapters. So in the 24th chapter of this 4th canto, how we had seen how the Prachetas, 10 sons of Prachina Barhi, went to perform austerities. They found a reservoir and they decided to enter into the reservoir to perform austerities before getting married and beget children. They want to become spiritually strong before getting married, before entering into the household life. So at that time, Lord Shiva appeared there, and he was very much pleased with them and recited a prayer and asked them to repeat this particular prayer. So this prayer is known as Rudra Gita. So Lord Shiva recited a mantra, basically a prayer. He became the guru of Prachetas. So he said, okay, I've chanted this prayer, this mantra for your benefit. And if you repeat this mantra for a long time, you would be able to get the audience of Lord Vishnu. And then he disappeared. So Prachetas following the orders of instruction by Lord Shiva, entered into this reservoir and started performing austerities while chanting this prayer, and that was chanted by Lord Shiva. So while the sons, Prachetas, were executing austerities, Narada Muni wanted to come and see their father, Prachina Barishyat. He wanted to basically give his mercy and enlighten Prachina Barishyat. This king was very much attached to the fruitive activities, wherein he was just performing these sacrifices back to back for some material benefit, not for the spiritual benefit. So these are all karma kanda, not related to the devotion. So he wanted to deliver, Narada Muni wanted to deliver the father of Prachetas. So then he went to Prachina Barihi and he said, "What are you doing, my king? These kind of karmakandic activities or fruity activities will not get you anywhere. They will not give you ultimate happiness. What is the point of you performing?" And then king begged him to enlighten. "Oh my," and Narada Muni, "please enlighten." And then Narada Muni then said, "You see, all these animals in the sky, you have killed them in the sacrifice, various sacrifices you had performed. They are just awaiting your death to take revenge on you." And then Narada Muni narrated an allegorical story, which is a made-up story. Sometimes, you express in an indirect way. Then he started saying there was a king in this story, allegorical story, made-up story. There was a king named Puranjana. This Puranjana was, trying to gain happiness. He wandered all around, and he had a friend, an unknown friend, but he didn't know that he had a friend, but he had a very well-wisher, good friend. So he didn't know about that, but he gave up the company of his friend, and he was just wandering everywhere. And then eventually he found a city which has 9 gates. That Puranjana represents the soul. That friend is nothing but super soul, and the city is this material body which has 9 gates. So in this material body, in this city, so there are so many descriptions were given. There were so many things are there, like nose. All these are compared to, they say, for example, airs are compared to parks, like that. But in this city, he found a very beautiful woman. And so he was captivated by this woman, and he asked whether, she can marry him. And she said yes, and they both got married. So this beautiful woman, Puranjani, is actually represents material intelligence. Material intelligence. So he got married, and basically trying to satisfy the desires of this desires through this wife, material intelligence. Basically, he became servant of the material intelligence. He became servant of Puranjani. Please bear with me. This is an allegorical story. I hope so far it is clear. So he became servant of this Puranjani. Puranjani represents the material intelligence. Material intelligence tells us so many things because we don't have the spiritual intelligence. This intelligence tells us so many things. So how he became servant, I'll just read a little bit. So we are still in the 25th chapter. So I'm just trying to summarize here. So let me just read a little bit about that. He followed her every move. So basically followed the material intelligence. How? He drank, dined, chewed, sang, cried, laughed, talked loosely, walked, stood still, lie down, sat, heard, saw, smelt, touched, lamented, enjoyed, and was satisfied, exactly following her. So basically, just becoming servant of this material intelligence, like a pet animal. Thus, foolish Puranjana was cheated by his own nature, even against his desire. He remained under her control. Her is material intelligence, just like a pet animal. So this is where we finished 2 weeks ago. Okay, so Puranjana married to Puranjani and living in that city city which has 9 gates, basically in the material body. So this way is trying to fulfill the desires, material desires. So in chapter 26, this is entitled as King Puranjana goes to the forest to hunt and his queen becomes angry. So once upon a time, this King Puranjana, he went to forest, mounting his chariot. So, and why did he go there? He did not tell his wife when he was going to the forest. So this is compared to that he has one wife, but he's looking for more women. Going to the forest is compared to like that. That's why he did not tell his wife. We went to forest, and forest for hunting. Then there he killed many animals. So ideally, this, if someone is killing animals, it should be done according to the Vedic injunctions. Sometimes a king is allowed to kill some ferocious animal or to practice, this archery. Like that, only certain animals to be killed, or for sacrificial purpose, you bring some animals like that. But one should not, indiscriminately kill animals. That is given here. Let me go to chapter 26. Okay. Bhakti, can you read from text 6 to 8, please? I can't hear you.
If a king is too attracted to eating the flesh, he may, according to the Use the book. If a king is too attracted to eating flesh, he may, according to the directions of the revealed scriptures on sacrificial performances, go to the forest and kill some animals that are recommended for killing. One is not allowed to kill animals unnecessarily or without restrictions. The Vedas regulate animal killing to stop the extravagance of foolish men influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance. Narada Muni continued speaking to King Prachin Barhishan. My dear king, anyone who works according to the directions of the Vedas, the Vedic scriptures, does not become involved in fruitive activities. Otherwise, a person who acts whimsically falls down due to false prestige. Thus, he becomes involved in the laws of nature, which are composed of three qualities: goodness, passion, and ignorance. In this way, a living entity becomes devoid of his real intelligence and becomes perpetually lost in the cycle of birth and death. Thus, he goes up and down from a microbe in stool to a high position in the Brahmaloka planet.
Thank you very much. So basically, if anything, yah shastra vidamuchudra vartate kamakarataha, one should act according to as per the scriptural injunction. Otherwise, one will be subjected to the law of God. And that is the point. So anyway, this King Puranjana, without informing his wife, he went to the forest for hunting and indiscriminately killed many animals there, many animals. And seeing this, those people who are very merciful by nature became very unhappy. So such merciful persons could not tolerate seeing all this killing. So just like devotees, they become very unhappy with these slaughterhouses because devotees are merciful. So he indiscriminately killed many animals, and he was, very much fatigued, and then became hungry, thirsty, and decided to come to the palace again. And after coming to the palace, he took shower and decorated his body nicely, and then trying to search out for his queen. There were so many maid servants there, and then he inquired from them. So whereabouts the queen was, and eventually he understood that his wife is little unhappy, and she was angry, and she was morose. And he wanted her company, and he wanted to enjoy the company of queen. So that's why he is expert at flattering. So he tried to pacify with flattery. So he began to, and then basically saying that I'm actually your servant. All these things he was mentioning. Give up your anger, show your beautiful face, like that. Please be kind to me. Basically, he flattered her, flattered the queen, Puranjani. So that's how this chapter 26 ends. And in the 27th chapter, titled Attack by Chandavega on the City of King Puranjana, the character of Kalakanya. Okay, so after flattering her, and she gave up her moroseness, and she gave happiness to the king. So the king Puranjana was very much engaged in uniting with her, and he forgot everything and completely engrossed in this activity and produced many children. He begot, here it is said, 1,100 sons and 110 daughters. And when these children got married, they also produced many grandchildren. All these sons and grandsons are compared to the actions and reactions of the living entity. So in this allegorical story, so there are thousands of all these things, isn't it? Like thousands of children and grandchildren. All these represents that our actions and reactions in this story. So what happened after that, after begetting many children? So what happened? So once he was attacked, his city was attacked by Chandavega. Chandavega means basically Chandavega represents the time. When the time comes, everybody has to leave. Yeah. So this Chandavega time, along with his soldiers, Chandavega means time. It had many powerful soldiers, 360 powerful Gandharva soldiers, each with a female Gandharvi companion, surrounded and plundered Puranjana city, built for his sense gratification. So this Chandavega represents the time. Time is attacking. Time means indirectly, time is telling, now you had enough. You have to get out of this body. So time is attacking, along with days and nights and other things. That time, in the body, we have a life air. In this story, which was the life air was compared to 5-headed serpent. This 5-headed serpent was defending this city. Basically, life air was defending. At that time, the old age, Kalakanya, was also attacking the king. Many people are attacking the king here. So he produced many children and grandchildren, but after some time, in due course, he became old. That means Jara, Kalakanya, is also attacking him. Who are attacking? Time is there. Along with time, Jara, old age was present, and there is fear was also present. And when we leave, when we give up the body, the temperature increases. That is called prajvara. That is also attacking. So many people were attacking this king or king's city. King city is body. Basically, body is being attacked by diseases, attacked by old age, attacked by the time, and also there is fear. All these things are attacking. And what happens? King had to give up his body. While giving up his body, we are now entering to the 28th chapter. I'm making it simple for avoidance of any confusion. So while giving up his body, the king, what was he doing? He was thinking about his wife. So now, so here it will be very interesting. Here from here onwards, we'll take so many lessons. So the serpent, basically, yeah, serpent means the life air had to, life air was not able to defend. So it was taken away, by the old age. Basically, he died. So when King Puranjana died, he was thinking about, gave up his body while remembering his wife. And consequently, in his next life, he became a very beautiful and well-situated woman. He took his birth as the daughter of King Vidarbha in the very house of the king. Okay, let me bring up that screen. We will. So this is chapter 28 and text 28. So what happens? Because he gave up his body while remembering his wife. Prabhupada also said that because of the attraction to the opposite sex, the Prabhupada said wife becomes husband, husband becomes wife in the next life, or husband becomes, enters into the female body, and the wife will enter into the male body. And because of that attraction, because of that strong remembrance. So let's read the text 28. Meena Mataji, would you like to read the purport? Are you there? I can't hear you.
Sorry, Prabhuji. Since King Puranjana thought of his wife at the time of death, he attained the body of a woman in his next birth. This verifies the following verse in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, text 6. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. When a living entity is accustomed to think of particular subject matter or become absorbed in a certain type of thought, he will think of that subject at the time of death. At the time of death, one will think of the subject that has occupied his life while he was awake, lightly sleeping or dreaming, or while he was deeply sleeping. After falling from the association of the Supreme Lord, the living entity thus transmigrates from one bodily form to another according to nature's course, until he finally attains the human form. If he is absorbed in material thoughts and ignorant of spiritual life, and he does not take shelter under the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, who solves all questions of birth and death, he will become a woman in the next life, especially if he thinks of his wife. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 31, Text 1, Karmana Daiva Netrena. A living entity acts piously and impiously, and sometimes in both ways. All actions are taken into account, and the living entity is offered a new body by his superiors. Although King Puranjana was overly attached to his wife, he nonetheless performed many pious fruitive activities. Consequently, although he took the form of a woman, he was given a chance to be the daughter of a powerful king, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, text 41. The unsuccessful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. If a person falls from the path of Bhakti Yoga, God realization due to attachment to fruitive activity, philosophical speculation, or mystic yoga, he is given a chance to take birth in a high and rich family. The higher authorities appointed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead thus renders justice to the living entity according to the living entity's desires. Although King Puranjana was overly absorbed in thoughts of his wife and thus became a woman, he took birth in the family of a king due to his previous pious activities. The conclusion is that all our activities are taken into consideration before we are awarded another body. Narad Muni therefore advised Vyasadeva that one should take to Krishna consciousness, devotional service, and abandon all ordinary occupational duties. This advice was also given by Lord Krishna himself. Although a devotee may fall from the path of spiritual consciousness, he will nonetheless attain a human body in the home of a devotee or a rich man. In this way, one can resume his devotional service. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. What a beautiful purport. Yes, Aravind Prabhu, you had a question?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Yes, I have a question. I've always wondered about that verse because in nowadays, if you're prone to be born into a rich family, most people that I know in rich families, they're just after sense gratification. So I always get confused by this verse because if they've been given this chance to, being born into an aristocratic family, but they don't do anything with it.
Yeah. Okay. So I understand your question. Thank you for asking, Prabhu. Basically, not all rich people are going to be devotees. Your question is that, why are they not performing devotion? They can just execute pious activities. Because of their piety, they might have taken birth in the rich family. But the devotee is different. Devotee is different. A devotee performs, devotion and not completed, the devotion fully. And then that devotee is given chance to take birth in in a nice family. Rich means it's not, it can be just, comfortable family. And thereby, there are no problems for them to, have the minimum necessities of life. And then again, they carry on performing their devotion. Not every rich person, you're right, not every rich person will perform the devotion, but devotees, they are also placed in a reasonable family, So basically, wherever you are, Aravind Prabhu, your devotion is protected. Whether you are born in a rich family or in poor family, our devotion is guaranteed. That is what the message, essence of that verse is. Here, King Puranjana, he had executed so many, he performed so many sacrifices. So Prabhupada is mentioning the purport. Although he thought of his wife, because he thought of wife, he became woman. And because of his pious activities, he took birth as king's daughter in the same kingdom. So sometimes if you are very much attached to our own home, our own country, then we will take birth. Because of that attachment, we will take birth there itself. Say, for example, in the case of Bharat Maharaj. Bharat Maharaj, he thought of deer when he was quitting his body. So he became deer. He took birth as deer elsewhere, somewhere else. But he came to that place where he was performing originally his devotional service. It is called Kulaha Ashrama. So because he was attached to that place, he came to that place. yeah, so I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, it does. It just makes me think that that verse was meant for the older times when people were more pious and it was mainly quite religious people who are in the highest sort of.
Yeah, but yeah,
status.
even like not every rich person is like, if you see, there's a Kuvera sons, Nal Kuvera Mangiva story is there. And they were the sons of Kuver. And they were cursed to be, taken birth as Yamala Arjuna trees, twin trees in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj. Not every rich person is a devotee, but devotees also, Krishna looks after them. They are placed in a reasonably well families. But wherever they are born, their devotion is protected. Okay. And this, and so her name now Puranjana becomes woman, and her name is Vaidharbi. And she married to a king named Malayadhwaja. This Malayadhwaja, yes, Meena Mataji, go on.
If he was born in his own kingdom, so the kings were his family, right? Would be one of his sons or grandsons or whatever.
Possibly.
So
Yeah.
he was born there and then he probably married. Yeah, okay. Possibly, yeah.
It is an allegorical story. Through this story, he is explaining us basically, this is how.
I forgot about that. That's true.
This is what happens, if you're thinking of this person, you become like this. So yeah, this is allegorical, so it's not a true story. It's an indirect way of telling. And yeah, so, and what she had done, she married a king named Malayadhwaja. This Malayadhwaja is a wonderful devotee. Yes. Is very pious, and he's basically a devotee of the Lord. And he was a king and at the same time devotee of the Lord. So what he did after a certain age, when he reached a certain age, he divided the kingdom and handed over the responsibilities to their children. And they retired to the forest, both Malayadhwaja and this lady Vaidharbi. Vaidharbi in the previous life, who was she? She was Puranjana, right? Puranjana. Okay, so let's read a little bit from there. So when they went, she served this Malayadhwaja very nicely. He was a saintly king, as I mentioned. From 43 onwards, Padma Mataji, are you able to read? Or if not, then we can ask someone. Okay.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Can you read from 43 till 50, please?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much. Text 43. The daughter of King Vidarbha accepted her husband all in all as the supreme. She gave up all sensual enjoyment and in complete renunciation followed the principles of her husband, who was so advanced. Thus, she remained engaged in his service. Text 44. The daughter of King Vidarbha wore old garments, and she was lean and thin because of her vows of austerity. Since she did not arrange her hair, it became entangled and twisted in locks. Although they remained always near her husband, she was as silent and unagitated as the flame of an undisturbed fire. Text 45. The daughter of the king Vidarbha continued as usual to serve her husband, who was seated in a steady posture until she could ascertain that he had passed away from the body. Text 46. While she was serving her husband by massaging his legs, she could feel that his feet were no longer warm and could thus understand that he had already passed from the body. She felt great anxiety upon being left alone. Bereft of her husband's company, she felt exactly as the deer feels upon being separated from its mate. Text 47. Being now alone and a widow in that forest, the daughter of Vidarbha began to lament, incessantly shedding tears, which soaked her breasts, and crying very loudly. Text 48. O best of kings, please get up, get up. Just see this world surrounded by water and infested with rogues and so-called kings. This world is very much afraid, and it is your duty to protect her. Text 49. The most obedient wife thus fell down at the feet of her dead husband and began to cry pitifully in that solitary forest. Thus the tears rolled down from her eyes. Text 50. She then prepared a blazing fire with firewood and placed the dead body of her husband upon it. When this was finished, she lamented severely and prepared herself to perish in the fire with her husband.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
So here, the king Malayadwaja represents spiritual master. So she served Malayadwaja very nicely. Malayadwaja was a great devotee. So unless until we serve a devotee, there is no question of liberation from this world. Some or other we should link up ourselves to a devotee and serve in to our best of our abilities. In our whatever the capacity could be, just serve. So because she served a pure devotee, here she represents a disciple, and Malayadwaja represents the spiritual master. So disciple should serve the spiritual master just as Vaidarbhi served her husband Malayadwaja. Then there is a possibility of liberation. Then the super soul talks to you or guides, or you would be able to hear the super soul in that condition. So all these days, this initially Puranjana, later became Vaidarbhi, had a friend, Avijñata, super soul. Avijñata was always speaking, but that individual soul could not hear because that individual soul was after sense gratification. But now, after serving a pure devotee, she became purified. That individual soul became purified. And then we will now see that she would be able to hear the Avijñata super soul in the next section. But before we go there, let's read the purport of text 43. Who would like to read? Lalita Preeti, do you want to read? Or Aravind Prabhu, anyone? I can't hear anyone.
I can read.
Sure.
Okay, go on.
Okay, can.
No, you, Mataji, please.
Creatively, King Malayadwaja is the spiritual master, and his wife Vaidarbi is the disciple. The disciple accepts the spiritual master as the supreme personality of Godhead. As stated by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in Gurvashtaka, Sakshat Dharitvena, one directly accepts the Guru, the spiritual master, as the supreme personality of Godhead. One should accept the spiritual master not in the sense that Mayavadi philosophers do, but in the way recommended here. Since the spiritual master is the most confidential servant of the Lord, he should be treated exactly like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The spiritual master should never be neglected or disobeyed like an ordinary person. If a woman is fortunate enough to be the wife of a pure devotee, she can serve her husband without any desire for sense gratification. If she remains engaged in the service of her exalted husband, she will automatically attain the spiritual perfections of her husband. If a disciple gets a bona fide spiritual master, simply by satisfying him, he can attain a similar opportunity to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So here just comparison is given. Wife is compared to, wife represents disciple and the husband represents guru. But, if wife is a pure devotee, husband can serve as well. And husband can also attain liberation just by serving the wife. That is also possible. Okay, so this is the meaning of that Malaya Dwaja and Vaidharbi. So ultimately, if a disciple gets a bona fide spiritual master, simply by satisfying him, he can attain similar opportunity to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we are all very fortunate. We got Srila Prabhupada, and so somehow or other, if we can serve and satisfy Srila Prabhupada, then there is some hope for all of us. Let us read now what this Abhignata says. Okay, so Aravind Prabhu, from 51 onwards, I will stop where it is required.
My dear king, one Brahmin, who was an old friend of King Purunjana, came to that place and began to pacify the queen with sweet words.
Just 1 second. So here, Narada Muni is telling the story to Prachina Barshi. So he's telling that. So, at that time, there is one Brahmana came, basically, and spoke to this lady. Yeah, go on.
The Brahmin inquired as follows: Who are you? Whose wife or daughter are you? Who is the man lying here? It appears you are lamenting for this dead body. Don't you recognize me? I'm your eternal friend. You may remember that many times in the past you have consulted me. The Brahmin continued, My dear friend, even though you cannot immediately recognize me, can't you remember that in the past you had a very intimate friend? Unfortunately, you gave up my company and accepted a position as enjoyer of this material world. 54. My dear gentle friend, both you and I are exactly like two swans. We live together in the same heart, which is just like the Manasa lake. Although we have been living together for many thousands of years, we are still far away from our original home. 55. My dear friend, you are now my very same friend. Since you left me, you have become more and more materialistic, and not seeing me, you have been traveling in different forms throughout this material world, which was created by some woman.
Thank you, Prabhu. Just be there, and then we'll read more. So basically, this Brahmana here represents that Abhignata super soul. And after her husband died, she performed the rituals, and she was about to enter into the funeral fire, but she was lamenting. Vaidharbi was lamenting. And that time this old Brahmana came, who is nothing but super soul. Now super soul is telling that you have forgotten me. We are always friends, but you've forgotten me. Mm, you are now my very same friend. Since you left me, you have become more and more materialistic. So, and traveling in different forms throughout this material world. That's what's happening to us. Let's read from 59 onwards, Prabhu. Arvind Prabhu, you can carry on.
My dear friend, when you enter such a body along with the woman of material desires, you become overly absorbed in sense enjoyment. Because of this, you have forgotten your spiritual life. Due to your material conceptions, you are placed in various miserable conditions. 60. Actually, you are not the daughter of Vidarbha, nor is this man Malaya Dvaja, your well-wishing husband, nor were you the actual husband of Puranjani. You were simply captivated in this body of 9 gates. 61. Sometimes you think yourself a man, sometimes a chaste woman, and sometimes a neutral unit. This is all because of the body, which is created by the illusory energy. This illusory energy is my potency, and actually both of us, you and I, are pure spiritual identities. Now just try to understand this. I am trying to explain our factual position. 62. My dear friend, I, the super soul, and you, the individual soul, are not different in quality, for we are both spiritual. In fact, my dear friend, you are qualitatively not different from me in your constitutional position. Just try to consider this subject. Those who are actually advanced scholars, who are in knowledge, do not find any qualitative difference between you and me. 63. As a person sees the reflection of his body in a mirror to be one with himself and not different, whereas others actually see 2 bodies, so in our material condition, in which the living being is affected and yet not affected, there is difference between God and the living entity. 64. In this way, both swans live together in the heart. When the swan is instructed by the other, he is situated in his constitutional position. This means he regains his original Krishna consciousness, which was lost because of his material attraction. 65. My dear King Pachinabari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, is celebrated to be known indirectly. Thus I have described the story of Puranjana to you. Actually, it is an instruction for self-realization. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhu. So Vijnata, the super soul, spoke, and in this way, both fans live together in the heart. So if we listen to the instruction of the super soul, then we regain our original Krishna consciousness. So when we are in Krishna consciousness, we can listen, or we can listen to the super soul. Okay, so with that, the chapter 28. Haribol, Bhakti, can you mute yourself? Thank you. So that's how this chapter ends, basically saying that the Vaidarbhi now attained liberation. So Super Soul tells, you are not Puranjana as a king. You are not the wife of this Malaya Dvaja. You are not man. You are not woman. You are not eunuch. You are the spirit soul. Basically, when we are in this body, we identify very strongly with the body. So sometimes when it is narrated in this story form, then we get the message quickly. So we now see that how this Puranjana wanted to enjoy and leaving his best friend, Super Soul, and taken shelter of this material intelligence, who is considered to be his wife. And because of the material intelligence, he engaged in material activities. And what happened then, Then while leaving the body, this king Puranjana thought of her, because he spent most of her time with Puranjani, that his wife. And so always, he was thinking about her. And while giving up the body, he thought of her. And because he thought of her, he became woman in the next life. So this is a wonderful instruction for all of us. Whatever we think, we attain that state, just like Bharat Maharaj had attained the state, like when he was quitting the body, then he thought of Dia. So he attained the body of Dia. Because he was devotee, he could remember everything in the body of Dia. That's a separate story. And after giving up the Dia body, then he became Jada Bharat. And that was the last life for him. After 3 lives, he went back to Godhead. Bharat Maharaj, and Dia, and then Jada Bharat. So Puranjana became that lady, and he was born in the same kingdom because he was very much attached to the kingdom as well. And her name was Vaidarbhi. Vaidarbhi married to Malayadhwaja. Malayadhwaja is a great devotee of the Lord. He represents a spiritual master. And this lady, Vaidarbhi, served this Malayadhwaja so nicely. And as a result of that, the super soul came in front of her, or she could listen. She could listen to the super soul. So the purport of this entire story so far, if we want to take the very essence, is that unless until we serve a pure devotee, there is no question of we being liberated. Otherwise we will be in that cycle only. We will never get purified. Here the purification happened. The super soul came in front of her because she served the spiritual master. Like that is like, after spending so many hours of reading these few chapters again and again, that is the crucial points for me. We will rotate, from one body to another body, and just like Puranjana, one body to another body, sometimes one country upper, from, like it is said that from Brahmaloka to the Patala, 14 worlds, we move from the lowest to the highest planet. Here and there, we just rotate simply. If we just perform the fruitive activities. One body, another body, we goes. And different designations, sometimes, animals, sometimes demigods, sometimes humans, sometimes male, sometimes female, different, sometimes father, sometimes mother, sometimes child, sometimes employer, employee, so many designations we have. But unless we serve a pure devotee, we will rotate in this conception, material conception of life. But that serving a pure devotee will purify us and reconnect to our best friend, super soul. That is the moral of the story that I can think of from these chapters. But of course, Puranjana, we understood this way. There was no explanation, isn't it? Our acharyas were giving purport. For King Prachina Barhi, there was no one giving purport. Narada Muni was telling in an indirect way. The story was being narrated by Narada Muni to Prachina Barhi. And Prachina Barhi was the father of Prachetas. So he asked, come on, Narada Muni, please kindly explain the meaning of this story. I don't understand what you are trying to say. Who is this Puranjana? Who is this, Puranjani? Who is this Malayadhwaja? All these things I don't understand. Please, can you explain? And then in the next chapter, Narada Muni gives the full meaning of this allegorical story. It's 8 o'clock. I'll stop there. Anybody has any questions or any comments? I hope that is pretty clear. Okay. Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai,
Ki jai.
Nitai Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol,
Hari Hari
Vancha
Bol.
Kalpataruvyascha Krupa Sindhu Vacha
Sindhubhya
Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare
Wonderful.
Krishna.
Very
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
confusing, but yeah, now just read it
Hare
again.
Krishna.
Hari Bol.